On a Friday, the entire country of Italy came to a stop. This was not for a holiday, but for a special event. More than 2 million people across Italy joined a massive protest. They filled the streets in over 100 cities. This was a very large number, showing how deeply people cared about an issue far away. The main reason for this big strike began a few days earlier. A group of aid boats, called the Global Sumud Flotilla, was sailing on the sea. These boats carried many people, including humanitarian workers and politicians. They wanted to bring help to Gaza. However, Israeli naval forces stopped these boats at sea and took the people on them. 40 Italian citizens were among those detained. This event made many people in Italy very angry and sad. This story will explain how a whole nation united. It is about a time when millions decided to take action. They showed amazing unity and a strong desire to help others. This was a moment of national solidarity never seen before. It shows how one event at sea led to an entire country pausing its daily life to speak out. 2. A boat on the sea. The nationwide protest in Italy was sparked by events at sea concerning the Global Sumud Flotilla. This fleet was made up of 44 civilian ships. Their mission was to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza, carrying much-needed food and medical supplies. More than just aid, the flotilla aimed to bring attention to the situation in Gaza and challenge the existing sea blockade. Around 500 people were on board these ships. They were activists, humanitarian workers, and members of parliament from various European countries. These individuals were united by a common goal: to show solidarity with the people of Gaza. Among them were well-known figures like environmental activist Greta Thunberg and Mandla Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela. Significantly, 40 Italian citizens were part of this journey, including several Italian politicians. Their presence underscored the widespread support for the flotilla's humanitarian goals. The flotilla had set sail in late August, traveling a long distance towards Gaza. However, on Wednesday night, October 2, their journey ended abruptly. Israeli naval forces intercepted the convoy in international waters, roughly 70 nautical miles from Gaza's coast. Israeli forces boarded the civilian vessels and quickly disrupted all communications. The mission of peace and aid was suddenly stopped. Following the interception, everyone on board the flotilla was detained. They were then transported to Israeli ports. This group included the 40 Italian citizens and politicians. The detention of these individuals, especially elected officials on a humanitarian mission, caused deep concern back home. In Italy, the news of their interception and detention quickly spread, becoming a major reason for public outcry and solidarity. People felt this act was against the spirit of humanitarian help. 3. Millions in the streets. Millions of people filled the streets across Italy. More than 2 million Italians joined protests in over 100 cities. This was a huge show of support for Gaza. The whole country saw this powerful action. In Rome, the capital city, around 300,000 people gathered. They marched from Piazza dei Cinquecento, near the main train station. The air was full of chants and banners. Many people called for an end to the problems in Gaza. Milan, a busy northern city, also saw large crowds. About 80 to 100,000 people filled its streets. Protesters held signs, some reading "Free Palestine" and "Stop the War Machine." In Naples, a city in the south, over 10,000 people took part. They even blocked access to the port, making a strong statement. The people protesting were very diverse. There were young students who came with their friends. There were also many workers from different jobs. Families, with parents pushing baby strollers, joined the marches. For some, it was their very first time at a protest. Mario Maschetti, marching in Rome, shared his feelings. He said he couldn't just remain inactive after hearing about the aid boats. "This is my first time attending such demonstrations," he added, showing a new wave of activism. Francesca, a university teacher in Rome, explained why she was there. She stated, "We want the Italian government to take concrete action against what is happening in Gaza." Her words showed a wider worry about the government's quiet response. 19-year-old Giordano Fioramonti spoke for many young people. He said, "It's also our civic duty to show how angry and unhappy we are with what is happening in the world, especially for Palestine, for the Gazans who are being killed." The protests covered all of Italy. From the high peaks of the Alps, where Palestinian flags were placed on Mount Cervino, to the cities in the south. This widespread movement showed how many Italians cared deeply about the events far away. It was a day when many different voices came together for a shared cause. 4. The country stops working. On October 4th, Italy largely came to a halt. After the aid boats were stopped at sea, Italy's main trade union, CGIL, along with other smaller unions like USB, called for a nationwide general strike. Around 60% of workers across the country joined this action. The strike immediately affected many parts of daily life, making it a truly comprehensive protest across the nation. Traveling became very difficult and frustrating for many. Railway services saw major delays and numerous cancellations. Hundreds of trains were stopped or ran late, with some delays lasting up to 80 minutes. Air travel also suffered. Many domestic flights were canceled or experienced long waiting times, although essential flight times were still kept open. Even roads were affected, with demonstrators blocking some main highways and access routes to major cities like Venice. Schools all over Italy were closed for the day. Many private and public schools could not open their doors because a large number of teachers joined the strike. This meant that students stayed at home, completely disrupting normal learning for millions. Ports, which are vital for Italy's trade, also stopped working. Dock workers were very active. effectively blocking operations at important ports like Naples, Livorno, and Salerno. In Naples, over 10,000 protesters gathered and completely sealed off the port area, preventing any cargo from moving in or out. These dedicated workers also stopped specific shipments. For instance, in Genoa, they successfully blocked a ship named Zim New Zealand, which was going to Israel, forcing it to leave without its intended cargo. Maurizio Landini, the leader of CGIL, clearly explained the strike's deep purpose. He stated that this was more than just a normal strike about work conditions. It was a clear act of solidarity among people and nations. He said it aimed to put humanity first and to stand against genocide and the increase of weapons. This powerful message from union leaders highlighted the unified spirit behind Italy's decision to stop working and make its strong voice heard globally. 5. Leaders are not happy. The Italian government showed it was not happy about the big protests and the national strike. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni spoke about the strike from a European meeting. She said it was for political reasons. Meloni suggested that union leaders just wanted a long weekend. She felt that revolution and a long weekend do not align. She also criticized the aid flotilla. Meloni called it dangerous and irresponsible. She thought it would not help people in Palestine and would cause trouble for Italians at home. Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini had an even tougher message. He said the strike was illegal. He claimed the unions did not give enough warning. Salvini also said there would be legal problems for people who joined. He wrote online that they would not let left-wing extremists bring chaos to Italy. But many people still joined the strike, showing that his warnings did not work. These statements from the government showed a big difference in views. Prime Minister Meloni wanted Italy to be a close friend to Israel. However, many Italian citizens felt very differently. Public surveys showed that a large number of Italians believed that serious acts were happening in Gaza. Many also wanted Italy to recognize Palestine as its own country. This was not the government's official stance. The gap between Italy's leaders and its people became clear. The government's words did not match the strong feelings of millions in the streets. This created tension between what the leaders decided and what a big part of the country wanted. The leaders were truly not happy with the situation, and many citizens were unhappy with their leaders. 6. Why Italy cares. Italy cares deeply about the situation in Palestine, and this support is not new. It comes from a long history. The country has a strong tradition of international solidarity. In the past, Italians showed great unity in movements, like fighting against fascism. These moments taught people to stand with others who are suffering around the world. This strong feeling of helping others is a big reason why many Italians support Palestine today. Another important reason is the Catholic Church. Most people in Italy are Catholic. The Church often speaks about peace and justice. When the aid boats were stopped, many Catholic people felt angry and upset. Even the Vatican newspaper L'Osservatore Romano wrote good things about the young people protesting for Gaza. This meant that the cause for Palestine reached beyond just political groups and brought in many religious people too. This shows how faith can also be a reason for action. This shared feeling for Palestine helps bring different groups together in Italy. It unites people from left-wing political movements who often focus on fairness and human rights, and also religious communities who are moved by human suffering. This wide support shows that many different parts of Italian society feel very strongly about this issue. They believe it is a matter of humanity and justice for all people. The recent protests in Italy were very large, with 2 million people marching. This huge number reminds us of other big protests in Italy's past. For example, in 1994, a general strike about changes to pensions brought 3 million people into the streets. The fact that the Gaza protests were almost as big shows how much this cause means to the Italian people. It highlights a shared wish for humanity and justice that has been part of Italy's story for a long time. 7. The world is watching. Italy's big strike for Gaza was not just important for Italy. It was also important for Europe. Many protests happened across the continent at that time, showing support for Gaza. But Italy's protest was the biggest and strongest of all. It involved 2 million people and stood out because so many took part. This showed how deeply Italians felt about the situation, more than people in other European countries. Italy's voice was loud and clear on the global stage. This huge event caused problems for Italy's government with other nations. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni faced a tough choice. She had to listen to millions of her own people who were protesting. But she also needed to keep good ties with important allies like Israel and the United States. Italy is part of big groups like NATO. These relationships are very important. The protests put a strain on Italy's standing with these friends. It also made things difficult within the European Union. Italy was seen as holding back the EU from taking action regarding the conflict. When Israeli forces stopped the aid boats and held Italian politicians, it created a serious diplomatic challenge. These actions made other countries look closely at Italy's role. News of the strikes spread around the globe. Many news channels in Europe and the Middle East reported a lot about Italy's historic protest. They showed long stories and many pictures of the huge crowds, explaining why Italians were so upset. But in the United States, the big news companies showed very little. For example, some major U.S. news channels only showed short videos, less than 1 minute long. This was a big difference compared to the extensive coverage elsewhere. It meant that people in different parts of the world learned very different things about the Italian strike. Despite some limited views, the protests did make the world aware of Italy's strong feelings on this issue. 8. What happens next? The general strike in Italy was a truly historic event. 2 million people chose to stop work and march in over 100 cities. This was not just a simple protest. It was a powerful statement of Italy's deep concern for justice and human lives. It was one of the biggest acts of support for Gaza ever seen in Europe, making the whole world pay attention. It showed that many Italian people cared deeply about international issues. Now, a big question is, what happens next? Was this a single, strong outpouring of national feeling, or is it the start of a new, lasting movement? People wonder if this huge energy will continue. Some believe the strike built a strong foundation for future actions, showing a new path for citizen power. Others think it might be hard to keep up such a large effort for a long time. The strike also raised very important questions for Italy and other nations. It made people think about how much power citizens have compared to their government. It questioned if national leaders truly listen to the millions who stood still for a cause. It made everyone consider how a country decides its foreign policy, especially when many citizens disagree with official choices. This display of unity showed that ordinary people can be very powerful when they come together. For the people in Gaza, this day brought a special kind of hope. They saw videos of Italians marching and heard calls for peace. This made them feel less alone. As one writer from Gaza shared, "The Italian people made us smile in Gaza." This comfort showed how human connections can cross borders, bringing a glimmer of hope in difficult times. It proved that voices of solidarity can reach those who need it most. The future is still open. Will Italy's government change its actions because of this strong message? Will other countries in Europe be inspired to do similar things? The strike showed great courage and a strong desire for a more just world. What lasting impact do you think this big moment will have on Italy?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.